Good morning, afternoon, and evening to our listeners across the globe. Welcome back to in12d and Happy New Year to all. This is our first episode of 2026, season 4, episode 33. And with me in the studio, my lovely co host from Ireland, Susie Vaughn. Susie, welcome back.
Hey Ramsey, it's so cool to be back. It's like kind of getting back up on the horse, and it is the year of the horse. It's like back on the saddle now. Here we go. And what a great start we're going to have to this year. I'm excited about our guest. I'm always excited, but there's a lot to explore with our guest this evening. She's a fifth generation psychic medium, but she's also known for her bold and strikingly accurate predictions about world events. So we're hoping that there might be some predictions coming through the this episode today, and we warmly welcome Dallisa Hocking, and you're so welcome. You're in Idaho, I believe, and we're delighted to have you with us.
Yes, I am in snowy Idaho, close to the Canadian border. And yeah, I am so excited for this conversation. I think we're really going to get into some interesting topics.
Absolutely. Like we feel like that there's a as we were trying to figure out where we'll jump in here, like so because you've amazing experiences that I think our listeners are going to really enjoy hearing about. So do you want to just jump in and tell us, how did it happen? How did these psychic gifts sort of unfold for you? Obviously it was in your family all along, but for you as an individual personally.
Yeah, this was not in my life plans. I did not wake up one day and decide like I'm going to be a psychic medium. So but my grandmother had these abilities, her grandmother had them. So I was very used to talking about predictions, and my grandmother could see full body apparitions with her physical eyes. So we would talk about, grandma, what did you see in your house last night? So I was like half terrified and half intrigued by, what she would tell me. So I had that knowledge, but yeah, in 2015, everything changed overnight. I was actually working at a business school in the US, and I owned a company that was all about matchmaking and hosting dating events, which sounds really fun. And I decided last minute that I was going to travel to New York and go to the Omega Institute and go to a workshop on the study of synchronicity, how everything happens for a reason. And my life could not be more ironic. So I go to this workshop on synchronicity, and all of these like things happen on the trip. For example, Dr. Eben Alexander, who's a neurosurgeon who had a near death experience, he was telling us the story of his near death experience as the retreat is opening up. And there's a part of his story that involves a butterfly. And here we are at night in New York, and he is telling the story, and a butterfly comes and circles him while he's standing at the podium sharing his story. And of course, like the whole room is gasping. That's just one example. So I
Wow.
get to the last night of my trip, and I just so happened to have a former work colleague of mine and a friend who had a house near the Omega Institute in the middle of the forest. And he said, "Come on over. We'll eat dinner. Like, let's catch up." So I went over there, and I don't know his family. Like, I just know him. And we're eating dinner, watching a movie, and the phone rings. And his family had called to let him know that unfortunately, his aunt, who he loved very much, fell down a flight of stairs and died unexpectedly. And of course, my heart breaks. I give him my condolences. He goes upstairs and goes to sleep. I head off to the guest bedroom. I don't really think anything else of it because, I didn't know his family. I didn't know her. And so
Mm.
I just went to sleep. And that night changed everything. While I was asleep in the dream state, the astral state, I could see her. I knew it was her, even though I'd never met her or anything. I just felt it through my whole being. And I could see her. And through telepathy, she was not moving her mouth. She says to me, please tell my nephew I'm okay. I made it to the other side.
Wow.
And so the next morning, I'm coming out of like the fog of being asleep and remembering what happened. So I go out to the kitchen and I said, hey, listen, I got to tell you what happened. So I tell him the story. He asked what she looked like. I described her hair, her facial features, and he said, that's her. So that's what started everything. And a couple of days after that trip, I was at lunch with a friend telling her this whole story about what had happened. And I reached for my phone. I actually started crying because there was a photo, a text message that had been sent to me, and it was a photo from her service that day. My friend had
Oh,
snapped a picture so I could see what she looked like, and she sent it over to me, and it was exactly as she had appeared just a couple of nights before in my dream. So that's where it all started.
wow.
Well, it didn't spook you. We're happy that you stayed in the in that line of work.
Yeah, it's something that absolutely changes your life.
Mhm.
And it was like flipping on the light switch. And once the light switch is flipped on, at least for me, like I couldn't turn it back off. And so then it just became this exploration of, well, what do I do with this? Like if Aunt Barbara, who I didn't know, could come through and deliver a message, are there other people or animals or angels or guides? What else is trying to get through? So then I started actually trying to learn things like channeling and replicating what had happened in the dream state while I was awake and being
Mhm.
very successful with the channeling. And then learning things like oracle cards and tarot cards and astrology. And those have, unfolded over the years. But really what it started off with was channeling, and even to this day that's my go-to. So whether I'm looking to make a prediction about the world or I'm looking to connect with archangels during a guided meditation, it is channeling. And so that at the core I think is my main gift.
I'd love to jump straight into the channeling, if you'll indulge us, because I was really curious when I was reading your bio, like these predictions are coming true very soon after you're getting that information as well. So it's kind of more, it's not as personal as Aunt Barbara, but it's more generalized information, and it sounds like they're big stuff. Like some of your predictions have gone viral. Would you be willing to share with us what happened like last January, for example, and how it came about?
Yes, that was unexpected. And so even me as a psychic medium can be surprised because I was not planning on that day being any different, than the day before. So I had a dream where I could see a helicopter and I could see a airplane and a crash, and so much so that it rocked me to my core. I woke up the next morning, and this was January of 2025, in my pajamas, no makeup on, because Spirit was like, you better make a video and you better do it now, like while it's fresh, like while you're remembering it. And so I made this video, 60 seconds. And a couple of days later, there was the helicopter airplane collision in the
Mm.
Washington, D.C. area that tragically killed many people. And what was really interesting about that premonition, it came in through a dream, which is not the typical way my messages come through. So it was sticky, like it had stuck with me. So that made it interesting, and the fact that I had made the video and people were already watching that video as like one of my predictions because it's a reel on Instagram. And so then when it happened, they remembered, since it was just a few days ago, they remembered the prediction video and then went back and started commenting on it like, "Oh my gosh, I just remembered you made this video." So it's probably one of the most concrete things that I could point to say, like, this is proof of the premonition and, it happening because it was such a major news story afterwards.
Wow. That so when that happens to you, Dallisa, does there, does it get a bit overwhelming, especially given the kind of, I suppose, the tragedy that unfolded there, like, so do you d how does it affect you personally, when that something like that is the reality?
I am known to cry a lot. People may not
Mm,
know that about me because it's often when I'm at home by myself or I'm in the car after having done a reading that maybe would have been really emotionally draining. So it can take a toll.
mm,
I've heard a lot over the years. I've been doing this now for over a decade, that there are a lot of people in the spiritual industry, psychics and mediums, that burn out or they have
mm.
to, take a long break from doing the work because tapping into the frequency.
Oh,
Oh, frozen.
Dallisa.
Okay, she'll probably get back in there now in a second.
Yes,
So bear with us.
that was an unexpected technical glitch. But
Yeah.
while we're waiting for her, you know, Susie, you and I, we took mediumship classes, and we were helping others doing readings and aligning things and getting information from the spirit world. It does have its benefit, doesn't it? Don't you feel that although sometimes it comes in heavy, but other times it's kind of rewarding, I find.
Yeah, it's a mixed bag, I think, because when you're training and you're learning, I think there's a part that is like you're unsure, you're not quite, fully committed, you're not fully, maybe experienced enough, but the information is there and it won't go away and it's really strong. So, you know, I think you learn eventually just to get over yourself and spit it out. Like, so there is that bit of anxiety, like that you don't want to do anything, kind of put anybody off or, give them some information that might upset them or something. So, yeah, but then it is very rewarding when somebody comes back to you and tells you, wow, that really, really helped me out. That was really, really beneficial. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a mixed bag, but it's maybe a good segue into our next question because I think we've got Delissa back on. Can you hear me okay, Delissa? No, she
No.
moved, but she kind of disappeared again. Because I was going to ask her, how do you kind of really develop this? Does
Oh,
everybody Oh, here you are. Does
she's
everybody
back.
get yeah, sorry about that. We were
The
just in the middle
power
of a
went
meeting.
out.
Oh,
Oh,
interesting. Okay. Well, here we are. We're back.
Yeah, I
Power's back.
yeah, I guess
Oh.
spirit really, really wants to make sure that this episode is memorable. Um, because everything just went dark.
The powers that be. Well, my question, if you want to jump back in, I was talking about, psychic development and developing gifts because Ramsey and I, that's how we met when we were training with spiritual kind of mediumship and psychic ability. And do you think everybody has that gift, Delissa? Is everybody trainable? What's your feeling on that?
Yeah, I think we all have these gifts and abilities. I think some of us are born with it, right? I think that I had the natural makeup and DNA. Maybe my pineal gland works a little bit differently than some people. Um because it's in my family lineage, so I do think I got it passed down to me. But I have met so many people over the years that they can build and grow their intuition and their psychic abilities even without it being in their family, without any prior experience. I have
Mm.
found it to be a frequency. And we all have our own vibration, our own frequency. And when we can increase, raise our frequency, then we can connect in to psychic information, which is one frequency, or we can raise it even higher and actually connect with mediumship energy. So, yes, we can all develop it, but some people need a little bit more training, a little bit, more working with the muscle. It's kind of like when you see a little kid that is playing the piano, and you're like, how did you learn how to play the piano at such a young age? It's like they're a prodigy. And then there's other people who, learn and practice and take lessons for 20 years, and then they're an incredible piano player. So I think that we can all do it, but the road to get there and to access the information just might be a little bit different.
Yeah, because it's a two-way street. I think there's a certain level of personal development in there. It's your own personal journey as well, isn't it? Like self-development, self-worth, confidence building, all of those qualities are really essential if you're going to really dive into mediumship. So, I was looking at all the different world-renowned teachers that that you've been training with, and obviously they all bring something different. Do you want to reflect on some of your own teachers and how that shaped you?
Yes, I remember even in college, which was, oh my gosh, do I want to admit that it was over like 25 years ago? But I had the pleasure of having Dr. Raymond Moody as one of my teachers for the semester. He had come to UNLV, which is in Las Vegas. That's where I went. And for a whole semester, he taught a class on near death experiences. Like, how
Wow.
lucky could I be? He's one of the world's leading experts on near death experiences. And I've always been fascinated by them. I've never had one myself, but even going back to a kid, I grew up in the Seattle area, and my pediatrician as a kid was considerably the world's leading expert on near death experiences in children. And he would have drawings from kids that had had a near death experience up in the office. So I feel like it's kind of always been around me on my journey. I remember also going to Lee Harris. He's very well known in the spiritual industry. I went to a class of his on energy mastery several years ago, and was just amazed at how many people could come together in a room and still have it feel so personalized to you having, the experience. And so he really showed me how to work within groups. And then, years later, I end up having my own 90-minute live stage show where I'm pulling members of the audience up on stage and doing live readings. And so as I think about teachers I've had over the years, like each teacher like brought me, I think, an important tool or an ingredient that I have woven into my work.
Wow.
Interesting. See, I think usually the path is what makes us at the end, because it's a accumulation of experiences that we just try to, we don't try actually, we just integrate into our beingness that brings us to where we are. And I think we talked about something like that before we got on, is we're moving from psychic into integration. Can we elaborate on that a bit?
Yeah, I was just sitting at home a couple weeks ago and I had this overwhelming sense come through my body. And that's one of the, pieces where like, okay, I need to pay attention to this. Like it just feels differently, it hits differently. And it was this message of, you've been making predictions. You've been helping people hear these predictions so that they feel more comfortable with what's coming, and they can get more prepared. And then that's been great. But dot, 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 you are now in the activation phase. And so
Mm.
I sat there getting like layer and layer. It was unfolding for probably 24 to 48 hours. And what came out of it was that listening to psychic predictions, because I've been there myself, more like psychic entertainment, where you go and listen to a forecast or you hear somebody's predictions about the world. And it can be entertaining, or it can also help you feel like you've got an idea of what's coming so you can better prepare.
Mm.
But what Spirit was saying is now it's about, what are you going to do inside of yourself? Like, how are you going to embody more of the peace, more of the clarity, more of the grounding, more of your sovereignty inside of your own physical body and in your life and in your choices? So it's basically, in other words, like moving out of being just a consumer
Mm.
of the content, but now, like, what are you going to do about it? Because we obviously face so many different choices and situations, and we have so many different relationships in our life that we're really being asked, I think, especially starting here in 2026, who are we? Who
Mm.
are we? How do we identify who we are? And what I mean by that is, I think there's been a lot of people, and I've been there myself, where I've said, oh, here's my job title. Here's the company I work for. Here's my shiny business card. I'm going to hand it out to everybody at the networking event. And it really feels like this year is going to be a push towards, what if you don't have that identity anymore? How are you going to even describe to yourself who you are? And
Yeah.
so there's this, in like the collective energy, this identity crisis that feels like it's emerging, and it's going to be asking all of us, like, who are you? And that, I think, is going to require a deeper dive into ourselves. And so we may not be as passive in 2026 as maybe we have been in other times of our life. This feels like a, okay, I'm going to get in there and do the work now kind of year.
Yeah, that's a big question. Like, who are you really? We use that in a kind of self-inquiry when we're doing meditation a lot. And you're asking that question in your to your subconscious mind, in silence, in meditation, with no expectation. Like, the answer will usually come whenever it's ready. You know what I mean? You're not getting an instant answer. And I think that that's what's seeding us on a subconscious level, or consciously at least, for, well, I'm not just my roles and my responsibilities. I'm not what it said on that business card last year. So maybe this is what where we're entering into this kind of new year one in numerology. Let's kind of rewrite it. Like, let's really feel into, in each moment, who's showing up, who do I need to be in this moment, or how do I show up in this moment, not necessarily in the old roles. And kind of letting stuff go, as you said. Like, it's a real letting go who you were in order to really become who you might be, almost.
Lovely.
So bringing all those gifts in too, I think that's what's really cool about what you're sharing. All the different teachers, the different teachings and practices. Are they all, do you think, kind of preparing us for what's coming next, so that we can show up kind of in the present moment, whatever is required? Do you feel?
Absolutely. I think that each of us that's feeling aligned and led to do that will bring our own unique gifts, our talents to the table, and help other people. And I don't think it's about lifting or holding other people up. I think it's now about, here are my gifts and talents. Here's what I can help you with. I can stand next to you, and I can help shine that flashlight into that dark cave that you're going into. But I really feel Like, it's about individuals taking radical responsibility for themselves this year and not relying on other people or not relying on external voices outside of yourself and what they're saying and what they're telling you to do. It's like, what do you want to do? I think this is the year of like the question and the power of the question. I just started a micro podcast called The Curious Question because of these downloads I've been getting. And that is just where I take one question a week. And I say, this is the question. Like, how is this showing up in your life? Because I think there is incredible power in just sitting with ourselves and asking a question. And I think that's going to be a big piece of this year, is getting curious about ourselves and trying to notice where we are plugged into too much noise, whatever that noise is, and then reclaim, which is the word that Spirit gave me for 2026, start to reclaim more of our own energy. Or where did we maybe even leave pieces of our energy behind, or energy fragments? And how can we call that all back into ourselves now? So I say to anybody listening that if you've got a gift, and we all do, and you're feeling called to share it and help people become the best versions of themselves, like, please do it. Like, we all need to be holding the flashlight for each other.
Oh man, I totally agree.
I fully agree with what you just said, or whatever messages that you've received from Spirit over the short period, like recent times. The code of who we are. We used to play roles with them, the mother, the father, and so on. And I think we're moving into a new energy whereby there's no need for roles anymore. We're all kind of integrated on the same platform if we actually allow ourselves to be there. So in order to be on that platform, we really need to let go of all old identities. Sorry, I don't know what's happening to me. Can't pronounce properly. So we need to let go of old identities in order to move into the new realm of information.
Yeah, I've never heard it put that way before, but I absolutely agree. I think it's the recognition that we are more than we've ever thought we are, and that we are more powerful than we've ever given ourselves credit for, and that we get to create and co-create our reality, our life. And that's a big difference for this year specifically. And the reason why is because in 26, what I've been shown is like, we actually can have really incredible times this year as individuals, and what we're able to create and accomplish, and feeling this new level of creativity and birthing in all different kinds of ways. So on the individual level, there is a lot available to us, and even this rise in energy and consciousness. And we'll find that we're communicating with each other, more through telepathy than we ever have before. And that's all beautiful and amazing. And the other side of that is a world that's going to look very chaotic. There's going to be so many changes with the dismantling that we've already been a witness to. And it's not going to be in just one country or another country. This is worldwide, where the systems that have been in place are really being either burnt to the ground or drastically reconfigured. And I know that might sound scary to some people, but I would remind anyone that's afraid of that you are more resilient than you might be giving yourself credit for in this moment. And you were born to be alive in this time so that you could not only witness the collapsing of the old, but that you could help be one of the people that is recreating the world on the other side of this. So I just feel like there's so much opportunity in the individual lives of everyone, but also how we're able to connect with each other in our own local communities and our online communities, and who we are traveling this road with. But 2026 has a lot of duality, a lot of the opportunity, but then also a lot of the chaos. And so it's going to take conscious awareness as we move through this year, that if we ever feel like we are afraid or we feel out of control, then maybe consider, what am I plugged into that does feel chaotic or does feel noisy? And how can I bring myself back into my own body? Maybe it's through doing a grounding meditation or journaling, or going on a walk in nature. Like, how can I bring myself back to me and find that peaceful center in myself again?
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Ramsey.
Sorry, I thought you had something, but here's something. One of your predictions, I don't know if they were yours or I misread it somewhere, is it about AI rising, right? One thing that is very important for the listeners to understand is that AI is not something new coming in, but rather something emerging from where we are. And on a spiritual level, from my point of view, is that we should not should that the word is, but we well, let me go back. We should work together. We should embrace it, basically, to uh, raise awareness and vibration of people through the new technologies that are coming up now. Instead of running away from them, we should embrace them and use them as tools to help us move forward. Is that part of what you see coming up for 26, 27?
Yeah, AI is going to be a massive part of our life, and it's really going to infiltrate pretty much everything that we do in our day-to-day lives, including work. And I know that we've all seen headlines or had conversations with friends or family members about, well, what does this mean for our job or for our industry? And it's going to move pretty quickly. Where I even think, within spirit saying in my ear right now, within the next 3 years, that our day-to-day life and how we move through it will largely be integrated with AI. There will be outliers to that. There will be people that will not want to do that, and they will attempt, or they will be successful in living off grid, where they have more of their micro communities and growing their own food and building their own homes. And there will be more and more people that will do that because they don't want to be a part of the technological future. So we're going to see some of that. But I think that, as far as what I've seen with it, we've actually had it before. The reason why I say that is, at the end of my psychic stage show, I channel a message and I never know what's going to come through, and I don't remember it afterwards. Not too long ago, I did just that. And a friend of mine was in the audience and came up to me afterwards and said, "Do you remember anything about what you just said?" So I feel like it was something about AI. And she goes, "Listen, you talked about how we've had this technology before and how we did not use it in a way that was of the highest frequency, highest consciousness, and it ended up destroying the world that we lived in. And that humanity now is going to reach that crossroad again. And what we choose to do with it is going to determine what our long-term outlook as humans is going to be like on this planet." So I do actually think it is a massive thing that we need to keep on the forefront, and we need to keep having conversations about it. And we need to trust our intuition on how we want to use it or not use it in our own lives. But I do think, regardless of what we do on an individual level, this is going to be a big part of the collective landscape. but what conversations are being had in the corporate boardrooms with these industry leaders in tech and AI, my hope is that they're having these conversations about what this does mean and what this is going to do to humanity. Because going back to the identity crisis that we've talked about a few times, I think that that's part of it. I think that we're going to see that in some ways, AI is going to be better than humans. It won't take over the heart of the human and the empathy and the emotions that we have. I don't see it going there, but it will be able to do a lot of jobs better than we can. One of the examples of that I've been shown is that the diagnostic tools with diseases will just be next level. The way they've showed it to me, which is often like playing Pictionary with spirit and trying to understand the interpretation of it, but it's almost like taking a drop of blood, which I know was part of a huge scandal years ago, but taking a drop of blood and putting it into a machine, and then the machine tells you the things that, but it actually being true and actually being able to do that. And then they showed that you'd be able to take that disease and put it into some system and say, this is the disease that we need to solve for. How do we solve this? And then it would come up with the cure. So it's like, this is all within reach. And so anything I think will be able to be fed into the diagnostic system and be able to get the quote unquote cure for it. Why I say quote unquote is because the other part of this that I have been shown is, yes, we'll be able to live longer and healthier lives, but what we will not be able to avoid is the emotional healing and healing from trauma inside of ourselves and the connection that disease has to trauma and unhealed parts of ourselves. So, yes, we'll be able to do a lot of things with the physical body, which is great, but I don't think we'll ever be able to bypass the emotional healing that we have to do.
Yeah, like I could go along with most of what you're saying there, and I think it'll bring a feeling that we'll have more time to ourselves, time with each other, time in our communities, time in nature. I think it'll free up a lot of people because some of the jobs that AI will take over, okay, it might seem scary to somebody who's very, relying on a certain, role or profession or something. But like you said, like in diagnostics and medicine, in just solving things, it can really just drop in possible solutions, but it's only going to be as good as the human interfacing with it. So as much as ChatGPT can spit out all sorts of things for us, it's only as good as who's reading that or receiving that information and applying it, because I think what we really are on the kind of maybe a threshold of is human development, developing our relations with each other, our sense of our humanity, the kind of soul to soul connections, the connections as well from the spirit realm, from the unseen realms. Like I think even if I'm sure you would concur with this through your experiences, how you become this kind of interface between the spirit world and people who are in grief or something like that. I know you were sharing an experience about I think it was a mother who had lost a son, and you had shared a story about that, how sometimes people get so kind of consumed by their grief or sudden loss of a child or a loved one, and you need that human interaction, and so spirit comes through a channel like you and can really sort of, so you're connecting on this soul level with people, and I think that's where there's a hunger for that. I really feel like we've been very malnourished with the fall of all the kind of people just have lost their kind of connection to self, and I think the time will come where we'll connect through nature, through each other. What's your feeling on that? How do you feel about that, Delisa?
Yeah, it's going back to the embodiment piece,
Yeah.
and how are we embodying what we want to be? It's kind of easy to say, like, I want less stress, I want more clarity, I want more happiness. It's like, my question back to you would be like, well, then what are you doing to get it? Like, what are you choosing for yourself in your life? And what are your daily activities and habits and rituals and routines saying about that? Like, where are you not aligned with that frequency? So if you're saying, I have so much stress and I want less stress, one of the things I'd probably sit down and ask you is like, all right, well, tell me all the things you're stressed out about. And why
Mm.
is it that you are still choosing those things to be a part of your life? And is there fear that is a part of this, and why you're still a part of these things that are causing stress? Is it that you're afraid to tell somebody no? Like, I don't want to do that anymore because you're afraid of what someone's going to say, or their reaction, or maybe they're not going to like you or want to be around you anymore. So there's a lot to dig into with this, but I love that part of it, because once you understand that you are the captain of your own ship and you
Mm.
get to choose each day, and that your thoughts and your actions then create the output, it creates what ends up happening in your life, then you have radical liberation. Like, you really are sovereign, like, where you can recognize how you are driving the ship and then start making modifications so that you end up feeling the way that you want to feel.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think it's more empathy as well with other people. I think it's not like, obviously we have to start with ourselves first, but it's being able to kind of relate to others as well, where they're at, and finding that compassion, like choosing our communities. Okay, so I'm not getting nourished and fed over here. This isn't helping me. It's stressing the living daylights out of me, or this group of people are stressing me, or this environment is, or whatever system. And then becoming more conscious, like you said, and choosing, okay, well, over here in this world, or this neck of the woods, or online group, or whatever, it's a different community, and I feel seen, I feel safe, I feel heard. And that's collective kind of healing, if you ask me.
Yeah, there's an amplification that comes with it. So,
Mhm.
my experience of doing this work with groups is that when there's a group of people that have that intention of raising their frequency or healing, or getting clarity or downloads, like whatever that intention is, if the members of the group decide that's the intention and we're going to sit with this and we're going to do a guided meditation, for example, that energy amplifies so many times over, just because there's many people doing it together. And anytime we have an invitation that feels aligned with us to go and join a class, or do a meditation, we should go, because by us being there and being present and open, that helps the energy to actually get bigger and do more work, in my experience of it.
Yeah, I'm doing a program at the moment, a dream yoga program. And it's been really interesting how that kind of collective energy is amplifying the experiences. Because when people come into the dream salon and share aspects of their dreams, even if they're just fragments that they're getting, it's like it's building something. You know what I mean? This shared experience is building, and it's kind of moving. We're moving as a tribe, or as a group together. It's not an individual experience anymore. So yeah, I'm really fascinated by the information that can come through in the dream state, and by us being conscious going into the dream state with clear intent, like asking questions, seeking solutions, and like, I'm curious, do you use kind of your dream state if you're caught or stuck in something? Would you communicate with spirit through dreams yourself, like not them coming to you in the dream, but you going to them? I was dying to ask you that question.
I have like written a question on a card, and then put it under my pillow before I go to sleep at night. So if there is really something that I'm having a tough time sorting out and getting clarity on, I have found that putting that question under my pillow is like the intention of seeking the answers out, that I will sort it out when I'm asleep. And when I wake up the next morning, even if I don't remember the dream itself, I will have more clarity about what it is that I'm supposed to do. So I've worked it in that way. But I've had like very vivid, realistic dreams. And I've noticed that if I meditate right before bed, my dream is more memorable and more vivid. And so doing even a 10-15 minute guided meditation on whatever topic you choose, I think could really amplify what you can bring through in the dream state.
Yeah, but it's a really untapped resource, I believe, the more I'm studying it, because you're asleep for 6 to 8 hours every single night. Like there's an opportunity every single night, and you don't even have to get involved. You can just be tucked up and warm in bed asleep. You know what I mean? It's so effortless. But the part of that night when, the rational, logical, kind of linear mind is switched off, and so the other side of your brain, the right brain, is creative and it's clever and it's kind of got all these kind of solutions to things, like a lot of I suppose big inventions and stuff like that got kind of clarified in a dream state, so when the reason and logic was off the hook. So it's like, I think you could be doing this every night for all sorts of questions. And maybe I feel now that we're beginning to kind of work out some karmic kind of traits or seeds that we have within ourselves that we're here to kind of work out. And it's that waking up with clarity and just kind of inner knowing. I get what I need to do today, and you're looking forward to it. Like it's a heightened state that you come into your waking state again.
Absolutely. We spend, like you said, so much time asleep. So why not use that time with more intention and connecting with, either ourselves in a deeper way, but you can also connect with loved ones on the other side in your dream state. You can go astral travel and go connect with beings that aren't of Earth. And there's all kinds of stuff you can do in your sleep. So yeah, why not? We spend a third of our life doing it. So why not?
Ladies, sorry to interrupt, but we're almost at the end of the thing. And we only have like 10-13 minutes to go. And I'm still waiting to hear your 2026 predictions. I'm on the edge of my seat. So
I love that. I love that you're like, listen, I've been waiting. Yeah. So I think what I'll probably do is just kind of fly through these, and some of them we have talked about AI and just about the chaotic energy on the outside, and then how we can be calm and peaceful in the inside. Yeah. So the digital currency, I do see money changing, and I think that's going to become more and more evident as we get through 2026, that the currency that we're currently using and wherever we live, that is going to be pushed into a digital system. And I think more and more people are catching on to that and having conversations about that. There will be those people, like I said, that say, I don't want AI. I don't want all this advanced technology. I'm going to go live in my little community. And there is something very appealing about having a tiny house community. But yeah, so I think we're going to see mixed responses to when that really starts getting rolled out. But that feels more global. In other words, just like you have a credit card today, you can go to a different country and use your credit card in most instances. So it's that kind of model. In terms of a prediction about the United States, which I think is important because I do think it's going to trickle out into other countries, is that I have been shown that the office of the presidency of the United States will actually change, and the amount of power that office has is going to shift as well. So this feels like we're going to be going more into the states and the states governing more so than the federal government. And even more so on a micro level with like our town, our city, and not only elected officials. It feels like there's going to be a bigger push for grassroots driven groups and non-elected officials that will be leading different communities. So I do think that there's going to be shifts with different government systems in various countries. So we're going to see a lot of news headlines about that and how who we know to be in power now will no longer be in power. So even if we live in a country where there is a president or a prime minister or someone like that, even if they have a term, like let's say we know they have 3 years left, there are going to be in many scenarios that there will be many leaders that will not actually finish their terms because of how quickly leadership will be shifting. So to clarify that also, I do not see Trump finishing his presidency in the United States. And I wish him well. I wish everyone well. I don't have a political lean one way or the other. But I would want him, if he was listening to this, I'd say, please take really good care of your health. And I know there's been some speculation about that, but I was just noticing some turbulence in the energy around his health this year. I do see more people leaving major cities around the world and migrating out of those major cities. And I also see more people moving away from coastlines. And it feels like there's going to be a rise in water on the coast. This doesn't feel like it's overnight, but it does feel like it gets enough people talking where they're not going to want to live right on the water. So I do think more people are going to be moving inland. The world map is going to change. I've been shown, especially as I tune into the United States, that there will be boundary lines that will be redrawn for some states merging together. I do feel like there is going to be more conversations about the US and their involvement with other places like Cuba, Colombia, and Greenland. So what happened in Venezuela doesn't feel right now, as I look at the energy, as the one and done. This feels like right now in the energy, it sits as this was the first. So it feels like there's going to be more of that making headlines. We talked about AI with the prevention and cures, which is really great. I also see that there are more, I would maybe call them homeopathic, more natural remedies that people will be using at home. And the use of sound and light therapy, using that more than ever before with different ailments and helping us feel more vitality in our bodies. So I think there's going to be different devices that we will have at home that we will be able to kind of in essence plug into, that will be able to shift our frequency. And as we shift our frequency, then we kind of rid our system of toxins. So it could be like a combination of different tools that are available on the market right now, but it just feels more like they're just showing me an image of Star Trek. It's like, do we go into some kind of chamber, or like, how does this work? Because it feels like it does like a whole reboot for our energy, which will help us to stay living a healthier, longer life, which is great. Let's see here. Transportation changing, I had written down as well. It feels like there will be a large focus, and I think this is the planet Uranus that will be going into Gemini in a few months. But it feels like there's going to be drastic changes to the local community, and where you live is going to be a bigger factor probably than ever before in how you experience life on a day-to-day basis. So for example, if you live somewhere right now where you feel like you enjoy being around the people in your community, you feel like there's groups and communities you can plug into, like micro communities, and you feel aligned with the vision of your town, then great. That's great. However, If you feel in your heart that you are not living in the right location for one reason or another, you may really feel this year a nudge to move somewhere where you actually feel more aligned with the community. And because more power will be going back to local jurisdictions in a bigger way, it's going to be more important as a citizen of that town to align with the vision of where elected and non-elected officials, the leaders of the community, are taking the
Mm.
community itself. So pay attention to that. I've also been shown that there's a bigger drone like vehicle that will take people places. So it's like faster than a car. It feels safer than a helicopter. But if I had to kind of equate it, I would say it's like a helicopter, but it looks like a big drone that you sit inside of. And they're even showing this to me as I'm saying this, where you can get inside and like hit the button and like beep, 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 beep. And then like flies you to your place. And then, but it feels like it's really meant for more like local travel. So it wouldn't surprise me if the airspace around the world, not, interfering with airplanes, but if there's a lower airspace where these drone like flying cars will be like an Uber that will just kind of
Mhm.
take us back and forth. So I thought that was really fascinating. Let's see. Yeah, and I also think that using our unique talents, which we've talked about today, and using them in a way that helps with raising frequency in whatever way that is, healers of all kinds, they will be very, very, very busy. So will therapists, so will life coaches, because of the amount of people that have not awakened yet that will be awakening. So even if you're like, gosh, I really wanted to be a life coach, but I feel like I'm too old or I missed the boat, it's like, please, no, we need you. So I think that more and more of those types of professions will get incredibly, incredibly busy. And I would just say, use your unique gifts and talents to also impact your local community as well, not just online, but connecting heart to heart, because that is something AI, like we've talked about, is not going to be able to replace. And so, as technology and AI starts integrating more into our daily lives, it will become more and more important to get out of the house and actually talk to people in real life. And so, as you move through this year, I would ask you to consider when you're at the grocery store, wherever you're out doing at the bank, wherever you're doing your errands. What if we just looked at the person and smiled and actually asked them, like, "How are you doing today? Like, has it been busy? What have the customers been like today?" And just strike up a conversation like a normal human being having a heart to heart moment with someone else, because that is what connects all of us, is our heart energy. And so we're going to be asked to do that a lot this year. Watch for the identity crisis that I mentioned earlier. And with Neptune and Saturn going into the sign of Aries, I think there's going to be potentially a lot of overinflated egos. And so if you find this year that you're having to be more thoughtful about where you're plugging into, who you're listening to, who you're spending time with, that could be a part of that energy. And just know that when you've taken that time within yourself and embodied in that peace, that clarity through meditations and journaling and going on walks in nature, like you will be guided to the right people that align with you. So if it's too noisy, it's okay to say no this year, because I do think there's going to be a lot of egos, even louder than 25. I think 25 was the warm up to 26. And I do
Oh,
think
dear God.
and I think 26 will be more chaotic in the world than 25. And I think a lot of the rebirthing that I think many of us are so excited about, and like, what does that look like? And how can we be involved? I think we see more of that start in 27. But this year feels like a tornado going through all areas of our lives. And anything that is old and outdated, that is not of a high frequency with integrity, feels like it's on the table to be dismantled.
Wow, that's a lot. That's a lot.
You heard it
I hope
here.
you got. I hope you guys would listen to this podcast again 3-4 times to capture everything, because there was a lot in there to untangle.
Right.
I just want to put something up, because a friend of mine who's an astrologist, she said that in 2026, a lot of people are going to start waking up to the changing realities after Saturn pulls away from Neptune later in the summer and fall. Thanks, Michelle, for this point, which is in line with what you were saying, Dallisa, but more on an astrological, from an astrological point, basically where the planets all align out with the old, with absolutely. So I know we came to an end, but I still have a lot to talk about. But this is what I'm going to do for now. Listeners, if you want to have an online quiz to discover your psychic gifts, okay, there's one available for you on spiritandsparks.com. Actually, on the first of the page, you'll see the link to it. It's Discover Your Psychic Powers quiz, and you can get on here. I'll put it up again. You can get on and do your quiz and see where you if you're a psychic. And I'm sure 90% of you, whoever tries this, of course, you're a psychic. Well, that was an amazing podcast. Dallisa, thank you so much. We really appreciate you jumping in on the first episode of 2026, year one, year of change, well, year of solidifying your future vision of yourself. And Susie, do you have anything you want to add? It was a lot, and I really want to go back and listen to this a couple of times before it settles in.
I feel like it was really dynamic, your predictions, Dallisa. Like, as much as you're kind of preparing us for, a lot of change being kind of started, and whether it'll go through to 2027, 28, I don't know, but it's dynamic, it's moving, and I think we're ready for it. I think we're ready to move with it. And like, I loved that last piece of advice, like, reach out to the person serving you, make eye contact, remember your humanity, like, you're human after all. And look up from the phone every now and then and see who's sitting beside you, and make contact. I think that's really a beautiful takeaway from everything you've said. So I want to get you back on. I'd love you to come back on, maybe halfway through the year or something. It'd be really cool to review some of this and see what else has come in the meantime. So we'd love to get you back. If ever you're free again, we'll take you anytime.
Yes, I would love to. And this year is going to go by really quickly. So 6 months will probably feel like 6 weeks.
There you go. You heard it here. Thank you so much. It was an absolute pleasure. Thanks, Ramsey.
Thank you.
Thank you.